little over 3 years ago, my wife and I lost our daughter. We had not a lot of time to prepare for that. She was 2.5. We had known from very early on in the pregnancy she had very significant heart defects that were surgically complicated. 1 in a million, 1 in 6 million, very, very complicated, but potentially fixable. So we went through the process, as you do, all the appointments and everything. And when we got to a point where we thought her final surgery, fantastic, this is going to be it, this is going to set her up for a great lifetime, she didn't wake up. So it's been a process from there, leaning heavily on a faith community and friends and family, and realizing the medical community did absolutely everything that they could, and coming to terms with how to get to a new normal after you lose your child. The medical community has evolved, and in the last 30 years they've developed some really nifty things they can do to fix a human heart, and we were very hopeful that through the various stages they'd be able to fix Olive's heart. So each step was waiting for the next step to get here, and in the meantime give Olive the best possible life she could have, let her experience everything that she could, meanwhile hoping that we wouldn't need too many more steps on down the road. So during that time we asked for prayer, obviously. When we were praying specifically, it was for the best life for our daughter, and for us to have the strength to be able to witness what she was going to have to go through, to have the strength to talk to people about it, and have the strength to just give her all that we had and still be able to function on a day-to-day life. So you just really have to rely on faith. And we had luckily established a really, really strong community here at FCF, and we had a huge group of people that we could lean on, and we knew that we could ask them for anything that we needed, even moving houses while we were in Boston waiting for Olive to be born. So we never worried that we weren't going to have our needs met. We just needed to focus on Olive and keeping her as healthy as possible.
So basically from the time of Olive's birth through that very first week of her life, then a few months later, and then that summer of 2013, it seemed like there were always dozens, if not hundreds of people praying for Olive. And it seemed like, or did it to you seem like God was late in answering those prayers?
On the day Olive was born, there were 18 people in the delivery room, representing 2 different hospitals, anesthesia, surgery, et cetera, Nikki's mother and myself. And when they brought Olive out into the world, of course our only prayer was let her breathe. Because until that point we weren't 100% sure that she would. And it was the quietest I'd ever heard her room until she cried. I was like, okay, relief. And then everyone went about doing what they were doing. They realized that she was going to do fine on her own for a little while. They could take their time cleaning her up and everything. So you lose a little bit of the brand new parent experience with that many people in the room and evaluating that many things, but you still try to focus on that and all the while thanking God that you have that moment and praying that you get another moment and another moment. And after that whirlwind day, when they determined, okay, so Olive needs her first surgery tomorrow or the next day, no later than that. So you pray, okay, let everything be all right. Let the surgeons be at their best. Let the anesthesiologist know exactly what she needs to keep her settled. Let everything just go as well as it can. And you're isolated at the same time. You're in a city, you're confined to a hospital. You can't really have visitors because they'd just be in the way. But you're very alone amongst a sea of people while being surrounded by people in the same situation or worse. And you start asking questions like, well, how do you get through the day? And no matter what nationality, it all boiled down to everyone was praying. and everyone was praying for different things, whether it was just for their child to be better, just for their child to make it another day. Some people were praying that their child wouldn't have to feel any more pain, and we were just hoping for one more day. So the night of her first surgery, there was a complication, and they called us, said that we should probably get over there. It wasn't an emergency at that point. They had kind of fixed the issue, but after closing her chest, they had to open it back up due to swelling. So Nikki recovering, I'm a nervous wreck. We have to go from one hospital to the other through a closed hallway over a road, but still it's traveling a ways, and you're nervous the entire time, and then you just see your beautiful little girl hooked up to a mountain of machinery, but you're thankful, and we just thanked God that she was still there, and we got another moment, and we prayed for another moment after that. So going into Olive's third surgery, we had an idea that this would be her final significant surgery. She'd have procedures for the rest of her life, but this would be the last time, hopefully, they'd have to open her heart. So we were all prepared. We did all the pre-labs, pre-testing, settled into Boston, had our alternate home set up down there, and we went in, and everything went great. It was a 9-hour surgery, I believe. It was a long day. We came out, the surgeon talked to us right beforehand, over breakfast, discussed exactly what he was going to do. We got updates all throughout the day. He came out, talked to us personally afterwards, and said that it could not have gone better, that it was one of the most perfect repairs that he had ever performed, and was really, really hopeful. And we had been getting an outpouring of support all day, all week from everyone. And a lot of people prayed for Olive's heart to be healed, magically. A lot of people prayed for the doctors to do the best they can, and long, healthy life. And we know that we had given Olive the best life we could so far, and we just prayed that we could continue to do that. And if there was a complication and we needed to move to Boston, we were prepared for that. And we just prayed for strength, for whatever. But we weren't worried. We had a serene feeling to us. It was a calm we could never really explain. Leading up to that, the days that she was recovering, even as we saw little complications popping up here and there, we were calm. We were the calmest people in the room. We felt what, in hindsight, we can only describe as God being there as literally as possible for us. And as more complications arose and a couple more days passed by, it became more and more clear that Olive probably was not going to wake up. And you don't know how to process that. And you talk to your loved ones and let them know, hey, this has happened. Pray. Pray for whatever you want to pray for. Just pray. And if you don't pray, start. The morning after her last significant complication, I didn't have much prayer left in me. And I had a feeling that I didn't need to pray anymore because I had an answer. And Olive passed away that day. My wife is my hero. She is the bravest person I've ever met. And when the doctors told us they've tried everything, she thanked them, each one in the room, for everything they had done, and for treating Olive the way we treated her. And I was amazed, because she thanked the doctors the same way she thanked God, the same way she thanked me for being a dad, being her husband. And because of her bravery and those words, I was able to thank the doctors and be at peace with the decision and the situation, rather. no parent should have to experience that. And there are times I wish I hadn't, but the grace of God was there and let my wife speak. And really, that's the prayer we should have been saying all along, was thank you. That goes to that saying we had from Meister Eckhart, as if the only prayer you ever uttered was thank you, that would suffice. And I believe that, and I've held on to that for a very long time. But because of that peace and that feeling of God being with us for that time, we were able to continue. And at that point, you make a commitment to one another. Okay, let's get through the day and do what we need to do, and we'll deal with tomorrow. And remember to pray and just move on, because that's the only thing you can do, is just keep going.
For a lot of us, when God's lateness in answering becomes a no, for most of us, it's never been about anything in the magnitude of what you've experienced, okay? So I'm curious to know how you processed what seemed like lateness. It seemed like maybe God was inattentive, to now it's a no. After all this time, it's a no. How have you processed that?
I feel God's a big boy, and if you need to be angry, he can take it. And if you need to be sad, he can take it. There's no right answer as to how you process grief. I don't recommend walking away from God. I don't think that's the answer. But there's no right answer. There really isn't. It's however you need to process it. But what I try to tell people, and there's so many things I could just smack people for saying, what I try to say is, I'm sorry, this is terrible, and that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that it's terrible, and it's a shitty time. Because I think when you admit that, you can heal. Maybe not faster, maybe not better, but you can feel the healing. When trying to decide on a name for Olive, it was difficult at the time. Olive was a given. Once we saw her first ultrasound of her cute little face, Olive was a given. The middle name was a little more difficult, and eventually we rested with Hope. One, we were heavily involved in Relay for Life, and Hope is a really strong message within that context. But also with all the challenges Olive was going to have, we thought how appropriate for Hope. And it really resonated all this time later that there is always hope of some form, and life goes on. So 3 years later, Nikki and I have 3 children under the age of 2, and I don't know how I want to say it, but aside from Wyatt and Max is Ivy Hope, who's carrying on her sister's name, carrying on a reminder to every day to be hopeful and to be grateful for everything that you're given in life. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak for my wife, which is not easy to do always, but logistically she needed to be home with the kiddos. And I'm grateful to Todd for giving me this platform to tell my story and share a little bit, and hopefully some of it is helpful to people when they need it.